In this chapter, we're going to look at programming with JavaBeans. A JavaBean is a class that exposes its methods and properties. Properties is a new term we haven't used before in this course, to other programs or applications. With JavaBean programming, we can perform component-based software design. What that means is that we can write independent components and then have each component look at other components to determine whether or not that particular component has a method or has data via a property that the component can use to get its own work done. So by being able to write components, we can simply plug components in when we need them and simplify the software development process. So in the next few lessons, we're going to be looking at how to do some simple JavaBeans programming. So I'm going to start off first by creating a class that will serve as a JavaBean. So we're going to call this class temperature. It's going to be used to store a temperature and then have conversion methods that can convert from, say, Celsius to Fahrenheit or Fahrenheit to Celsius. To start, we have to import a class we've never used before, serializable. And that's because a JavaBean has to be a persistent class. And by that it means we have to be able to save the state of an object at any particular time. So for example, we might write out the contents of the fields of a class to disk. And by that, we're saving the state of an object, and that's what persistence is. And we implement persistence via the serializable class. So any class that's going to be a JavaBean has to implement the serializable interface. So here we have to write public class temperature implements serializable. First thing we have to do is create a constructor, and this constructor has to be a default constructor. So I'm going to arbitrarily use the default constructor to set the temperature to 0, the current temp. We're going to define that in just a moment when we define the field of the class. After the constructor, the next thing we want to do is create what are called getters and setters, or properties for this class. In this particular class, we're just going to have one real field that has data we want to retrieve or set, and that's going to be temp, or the temperature, the current temperature. So a property, temperature, should be able to be gotten, in other words, returned, or set. In other words, we ought to be able to pass in a value for the temperature and set that field to that value. So the way we do that is we write what are called, as I said, getters and setters. So we'll have a get temp that returns the current value of the temp. And we have a set temp that sets the value of temp, in this case via the parameter t. After that, we can write whatever methods we deem are necessary for this class. I'm just going to have 2 to keep things simple. I don't want to make the definition too confusing. And here we're going to have a C to F method that will convert our temperature from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And then another method, F to C, that will convert the temperature from Fahrenheit to Celsius. And that's all we're going to define. Again, I'm trying to keep this class as relatively simple as I can. Since we're going to be looking at concepts that are new, I don't want to get too bogged down in details of a complex class. I want to concentrate on the procedures we're going to need to follow to do JavaBean programming, not on trying to create a fancy class definition. So we'll end this lesson here with this definition of our class, and now we're going to move to the next lesson where we're going to see how to create things called property and method descriptors that will enable other programs to access the properties and methods of this temperature class.